There's no business like none of your business.
So here's the thing. Don't you just love the sound of a good electric sitar? When I found out that Danelectro had reissued their classic model, I just had to get myself one. Wait, what? Do you hear that? Is that getting louder towards the end? Let's find out. So we've got a dedicated VU meter here. Let's see what it does. So we've got the high E string maxing out at about -7 dB. The B string already reaches -4. The G string is even louder than that at -2. The D string is the first one in this sequence that is not louder than the previous one. But of course the A string breaks that trend, giving us 1 dB more than before. And the E string even gives us slightly more than that, although not much. So these lipstick pickups give us a drop of 7 dB across all strings. And while the curve does slightly flatten, this simply won't do. So how to fix this? There are single coil pickups with adjustable pole pieces that let you determine the bass volume of each individual string. If you're interested, you'll find the link to the product page of the one I used in the description below. Alright then, let's get rid of all the plastic. And while we're at it, let's have a look at the bridge that gives us this characteristic buzzing sound. The bridge itself is the metal strip in the background, while the front edge of the plastic block causes the additional buzz. Alright, moving on, let's take off the strings. Using a crank like this one makes the whole process much more convenient. And since you're here to learn from my mistakes, this is one. Don't remove the bridge. Why would you? I guess I was getting a bit carried away. So let's remove the back panel. Flip it over. Remove the pickup screws. And voila. Enjoy how easy this was. It'll be far more difficult to get it back in. And before you even touch the soldering iron, be sure to document the wiring, like in a photograph. And then be sure to work with enough power on your iron. I found that 30 watts simply doesn't cut the mustard. The pot casings dissipate a lot of heat, so I recommend 50 watts or more. Also, check the polarity. You don't want both pickups cancelling each other out in the mix position. And then be sure to fry the soldering joints until they're well done. Nobody wants a cold joint. It was only here that it struck me that the original pickup was considerably longer than the new one. So I removed the base plate of the old lipstick pickup in order to mount it to my new single coil. So let's measure the distance and mark the drill points. I think the screws on the single coil were an inch measurement, so I had to recut the threads to make them fit M3 screws. Cutting threads into the freshly drilled holes, and then resolder the spring that had fallen off during the entire drilling process. You're going to need a really hot iron for this one because the metal strip is basically a heat sink. Then screw the new pickup to the old base plate, and then secure the bolts with self-locking nuts. But don't get your hopes up, we're not done yet. Not by a long shot. Now what I didn't find out until I put everything back together again was that the new pickup was almost twice as tall as the lipstick. So the original mounting screws and springs were far too short and thus of little use. So let's replace them. I also got myself a new iron with double the power rating. But if truth be told, 60 watts is still nothing to write home about. Do bear in mind that this footage is sped up and edited. It takes longer in real time to get the solder properly hot for a safe connection. Then clip the springs because of course I didn't get the size I wanted, so I had to go bigger. So let's get the bridge back on. And the strings. And tune them up. Lots and lots of screws, all the plastic back in its place. In order not to over-tighten the screws, I recommend setting your power drill to the lowest torque setting available. And wouldn't you know it, with all this effort spent, the new pickup still rattles in its slot. And I thought, well, stuff it. So I did, with foam rubber. And now for adjustment. The higher the pole piece, the louder the string. And this is what the final adjustment on my instrument looks like. Pretty extreme. And now watch out for the volumes. -3, -2, and then we stop closely below 0. And this was just the new pickup in isolation. So what if we mix both pickups? That's still more deviation than I would like, but the differences between individual notes on the same string seem to be just as large as differences between strings. So I guess that's fine. But that's just focusing on the VU meter. If you go back in the video and focus on the RMS values on the mixer instead, you'll find a much more, well, balanced picture. So what have I learned on this one? Well, I'm happier with the sound balance now, but it was also quite expensive. The costs for the pickup about doubled for me with overseas shipping and custom payments. But overall, I've learned a lot in this project, and if you have too, feel free to give me a thumbs up or a comment down below. So keep the curve flat, and don't forget to wipe.